Steel Curtain Network.
Touchdown! Touchdown para Calvin Austin! El Monte Washington es arma. ¿Quién más? ¿Quién más? DJ Watt!
What is up, Pittsburgh Steelers fans, and welcome back to another episode of the Steelers Preview. I'm Jeff Hartman, joined by Dave Schofield and Bryan Davis. What's up, Dave? How's it going?
It's going. It was nice to see you this evening, Jeff, as we had our last night of basketball where we were coaching. That was a lot of fun. It was a nice special day for us to have together. So it's good to be here now.
A nice special day, yes. Bryan Davis, what's up?
What's up, gentle hombres? I'm sorry that I couldn't make it. I know that you really want me to coach for you and be an assistant coach. And I think I'd be really good with everything I can teach. I can teach the kids the Matumbo right off the bat. But you know, I'm still waiting for that invitation. But happy birthday to Jeff. I've got to say that. I'm going to throw that out because, 5 years ago on this date, you know what happened?
Jeff turned 37.
It was my birthday.
It was Jeff's birthday, and Jeff's wife messaged me and said, "Hey, you guys got to do something special." And so we played Jeopardy.
That I do remember.
Oh, that was 5 years ago?
Yeah, because it
5 years
wasn't my
ago.
40th. My 40th, you all tried to coerce me onto a show to ask me something, and yet it was to celebrate my 40th birthday.
And you knew.
So that, yeah.
Yeah. So keeping with tradition, we have to go with it. Are you ready?
I'm a man. I'm 40.
Two.
Yeah.
That's right. 42 years old. There he is. Yeah, let's get it out of the way. So we'll talk about that probably more in the second half. I've got some questions for you guys as it pertains to something that happened recently, but still it's 42 years. It's 42 years. But let's get this show on the right start. So the title of the podcast is What a Big Move Would Look Like This Offseason. I think that we were kind of sold a bill of goods by Mike Tomlin at the very end at the press conference. He's talking about sweeping changes, and change was a big thing. Well, we haven't seen that, at least not in the coaching staff. The Steelers did hire a new inside linebackers coach, Scott McCurley. He was from Pitt. He's a Pittsburgh area guy. He followed McCarthy around, whatever. Okay, so you get Gerald Alexander in. That's it. Now, there's rumors there might be another really small, minor move in the coaching staff. So I was thinking, you know what? At this point, what would we even consider a big move this offseason? It could be in free agency. It could be in the draft. It could be a trade, like whatever. That's my question. That was my question. I was the one that thought of this title. You guys gave the okay to it. So, Dave, I want to start with you. In your opinion, what would a big move for the Steelers look like at this point? Keeping everything in perspective.
Okay. Well, I'd like to break this down first into coaching.
Sure.
All right. Because first of all, they say there could be some small moves. I wouldn't be shocked if those moves were, because they were with the team last year, if they actually in an official capacity have Ryan Shazier or Vince Williams or someone like that they give them an official role. I could see that.
Would that be a big move?
No, it would not.
Okay.
It would not.
All right.
It would
I
not.
was just
But
curious.
yeah, I would just cover that. To me, if coaching wise, if they were to do a big move, it would either be to make a significant position change or coach change, meaning coordinator or one that, I'm saying offensive line because a lot of people were calling for it. And actually name someone who seemed significant in that role. That didn't happen. It's not going to happen. If they were going to let someone go and do that would have already happened. So to me, the only way that they would make a big move coaching wise would be to add another position. And like I keep saying, they haven't had that assistant head coach since John Mitchell retired. It's not like there's not something they could do if they chose to. So to me, if they did a big move, I don't expect them to. I'm not looking for them to do it just because it's like when they added Brian Flores. Oh my goodness. What was it? Like 2 days after this, whenever they did a couple of years, because it was towards the end of February, right?
We were at halftime of one of our basketball games.
So on Saturday, we're at halftime. We're both trying to do that. If they added somebody else as a significant coach, probably somebody that was a head coach that lost their job and didn't get hired somewhere else. If
Antonio
they made a
Pierce
move,
would be a great example.
yes, or was it Gerard Mayo? Or did I get the first name right?
Gerard Mayo, yeah.
Somebody like that. If they added that because they just wanted to add another person, I would be all for it. I would call that a big move because to me, you could make significant coaches changes just by adding more people. Art Rooney says they're not going to do it. That's why I'm not looking for it. But that is something that they could do. I would call that a big move.
Okay. Bryan, it doesn't have to be coaching. You can go in any direction. What do you think is a big move for the Steelers this offseason?
Well, the way things are going, Mike Tomlin's going to not take the team to Dave & Buster's this year, and it's going to find one of the remaining Chuck E. Cheese's left in the U.S. after a ton of them.
Hey, we have one in our town still.
What?
Not that close.
It did it?
Yeah,
what's that?
Gone.
I never even went.
You didn't even know the Chuck E. Cheese is closed? Not gonna. No, I'm the.
Is that whole chain closed?
No, but they're dying off.
Yeah,
I mean,
it should have died off.
The only reason I know was because I driving past it. It's not like I was like, oh, thank goodness I don't have to worry
Let's
about
go
that.
get pizza from the drunk rat at the little kid arcade.
Yeah,
I'm pretty
rat.
sure we still have some tickets.
Yeah. So, anyways, I digress. Hey, it's just birthday. We could have taken him to the abandoned Chuck E. Cheese. So, now, you know what? I really think at this point, a big move, and I'm not guaranteeing one, but would be either a big name free agent or a trade to significantly upgrade some one of those positions that they really need. And at this point, I'm hoping that they address something, but we're just waiting for that quarterback domino to fall. And I think I don't think that's a huge move to wrap up one of those guys, but at least it's a significant enough move. But I don't know if we would consider it a big move. When I say one of those guys, I'm talking about Wilson, or I'm talking about Justin Fields, excuse me. But what I'm looking at here is if they go ahead and if they brought in a guy like T. Higgins, which they can't, if he's gonna get the franchise tag, if that happens, or if they were going after a franchise tag guy, if they were making a trade for a quarterback, if they brought a guy like Matthew Stafford in, which a lot of people were like, no, well, whatever. Look,
whether you like the move or not, it would still be a big move.
That's a big move. That would be a big move.
That's you don't have to like it, but it would be a big move.
So, yeah, so that that would be something significant that would make the entire football world go, whoa, look what's going on, because the Steelers are predictable, and the fact that if they do something like that that's unpredictable, people will take notice and maybe they'll take that label off of them. But right now, the way things are going, I'm fearing that we're getting closer and closer as Steeler fans to seeing Art Rooney 2 morph into Mike Brown of the Cincinnati Bengals.
Oh.
And that's, I don't think that's going to happen, but I almost think that feels like it right now, guys.
So I'm going to eventually get to Dave and let him give everyone a quick update on the salary cap and stuff, because I do want to talk about the potential spending, and I think that would be a big move. But I actually think for me, a big move would be reverse. What if they made a trade and they traded away a piece? And you're like, whoa. So now they're not acquiring a Matthew Stafford, but if they traded a George Pickens, if they traded a Minkah Fitzpatrick, or Lord forbid, they would trade a TJ Watt, who's entering the last year of his contract. Hey, I understand that what I just said for a lot of people is complete sacrilege. Okay, that's fine. You can think that. But I'm just stating what I think would be a big move. And a big move that a lot of people might be upset with. It would be highly scrutinized, but what do you get in return? In other words, if someone were to say to you, and I'll let you all answer this quickly, we want George Pickens. We're going to give you a 3rd-round pick in 2025 and a conditional 2nd in 2026. Dave, you make that move?
Yeah.
Bryan,
I don't think they'd get anything close to that, but I would. That's why I would definitely make that.
What's the compensation again?
A 3rd this year and a conditional 2nd in 2026
for Pickens.
Yes.
I'd honestly,
yeah,
I'd be happy if they got one out of those two. I don't think they'd get anything. I don't think they'd get much more than that. That's just me personally.
I think
I'd
you're
love
not
it if they
valuing.
did. That would be great.
I mean, you're not like the value for trading receivers has shown to be high, and his skill level is obvious in my opinion. But
he's got 1 year left, and he's a headache.
Yep. So you'd have to find a team that says we don't want to have to negotiate with this guy. But a lot of people wouldn't want to trade that much capital for only 1 year left and then have to negotiate a contract. It's tough, Brian, but I cut you off. Go ahead.
No, I mean, I like that. Jeff, I think it was one of your shows. I was listening to shows this week, and I think you mentioned something that you didn't think that George Pickens would be a problem if he was with a team like the Chiefs. Was that you that said that?
Yeah, it was me, because I think everyone says, George Pickens is a headache, and it was a question about whether Mike Tomlin should be lauded for his work. When did Antonio Brown become a problem in Pittsburgh? When Juju Smith-Schuster started getting the credit, when he was the MVP and not Antonio Brown, when he wasn't getting the catches. Le'Veon Bell, he just wanted the money, and he didn't think that it was what he was worth there. But Mike Tomlin gets credit for a lot of these players and keeping them, in, but Antonio Brown had no reason to be upset. He was getting everything thrown his way. He was catching everything thrown his way. He was considered one of the greatest, if not the greatest quarterback or wide receiver at the time when he was in the league, him and Julio Jones. He had no reason to be pissed off about anything. You still saw like the Gatorade jugs go on the sideline. If George Pickens were to go to Kansas City and he's getting all those throws and he's catching the football and they're winning football games, that dude is a saint. He's not going to be a problem at all. That's just my own personal opinion.
So, in other words, you're saying if George Pickens got the Antonio Brown treatment, he'd be fine.
You mean the targets and catches and production?
Yeah, meaning
and the wins.
How you utilized him in a game.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
So
he the damn ball.
That's not crazy.
No, that's absolutely correct. If George Pickens was drafted 1 year earlier and played with Ben Roethlisberger, he's a rookie superstar. I mean, you saw what Claypool did.
Exactly.
I mean, my gosh, what would have Pickens have done? So I think he's the guy that if the pieces are around him, that he will fly right. Because remember, when he was first here, he wasn't that much of a problem in his rookie year. He was more of a problem this year when things were going really awry. So, I would have loved to have seen him play with Ben, but I don't think he is going. I think he needs a quarterback. If they brought a quarterback here that would work with him and make him give him the Antonio Brown treatment and make him the superstar that he wants to be, you would have no problem from this guy.
Well, there's only one difference, though. If we're talking about Pickens, is that Pickens does not have the route running of Antonio Brown, nor the blatant work ethic of Antonio Brown.
That's true.
No one outworked Antonio Brown. You could listen to Ryan Clark. You can listen to players from Tampa Bay when Antonio Brown went there. John Gruden still talks about it when he was coaching him for a brief stint, that when Antonio Brown stepped on the field, doesn't matter as a game field or a practice field, no one outworked Antonio Brown. And he was just a tireless worker. And it showed up. It was evident. He and Ben Roethlisberger, in my opinion, don't get enough credit for their quarterback wide receiver duo being one of the greatest duos in that stretch of regular season, mind you, in NFL new era history. It was amazing what those guys did together. Absolutely
they didn't win anything. I mean, they didn't win any championships.
No, they didn't. But regular season production, it's out of this world.
Yeah. But one thing I want to point out is sometimes, even though, is there more to George Pickens than just what's going on in his head on the football field? Because think about it. We talked about how he had that, how he wasn't he, which game was he embarrassingly bad?
Wasn't it Kansas City?
Yes.
On Christmas Day.
Wasn't that also the game that he showed up really late and everything else?
Yes.
That goes to show you that there's more to him outside of even things that you could control on the football field or on the practice field or in the locker room, that there could be more there that we don't know that contributes to, because what was that the game he had all the drops?
Yeah.
So I'm trying to forget those games as much as I can. That's why I have to ask.
I know Dallas was a bad game though, too, in week 5.
So, okay, let's continue because there's other ways that there could be a big move. Dave, is there anything else you have in your mind that could be considered a big move for the Steelers this offseason?
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of going first. I said the coaches, but right now, when you're talking players, it's what you have now, what you can do now, and that would be trade, or if somebody gets released and could sign early, like what happened with Russell Wilson last year. That's really all that you could do at this point. That would be a big move. What I really want to see more than anything is the big move come March 10th, because the Pittsburgh Steelers are sitting in very good salary cap space as of this moment without even having to cut anybody. You know, I did an article on Monday for the website about how the Steelers have the least amount of dead money of any team in the. They only have $45,000 worth of dead money. That's because they don't have players that they've said, you know what, we had you for, you signed them for a 3-year deal knowing you're only going to keep them for 2. Those kind of things. They could still do that. I think they should do that with the likes of a Larry Ogunjobi, which would add to some of that dead money. But you're not talking about racking up $30 million in dead money like they had last year, the year before, things of that nature when it's all said and done. And therefore, they're sitting there with the salary cap coming in that was announced with that $4 million range. That's why I'm giving a $4 million range to my number right now. They're sitting between $58 and $62 million. Of what they're at right now. And that's without having, they definitely have some players on their team that under a normal cap year for the Steelers where they're more up against it would have definitely been cap casualties.
Well, you included Preston Smith in your calculations, right?
Well, there was no dead money. Yeah.
No. I'm talking about in your 58 to 62.
Yep. Yeah, he was. Yeah, that already dropped him out because that $13.4 million was because part of it was base salary, part of it was he was due a signing bonus, early in the league year. So is Larry Ogunjobi. He's got $7 million in base salary, $4 million is base, $3 million of it's a signing bonus that the Steelers would have to pay if he's on the roster after like the third day of the league year or something. Exactly what it is in the contract, I'm not sure. So they could still be making some of those moves that typically they would have done now as cap moves. But they're in such good cap space, they don't have to make those moves right now. So they're kind of, to me, I think they're kind of waiting to see if it's the right personnel move or
not. Real quick, before I throw it to Bryan, Dave, what do you know off the top of your head, because I know you look at these numbers, do you know what TJ Watt's salary cap hit is for this season?
30, not quite 30.5.
Okay, so if they were to give him a new deal,
that could probably. Well, let's just say it depends on how much signing bonus they would give him versus how much quota. You don't have to give as much signing bonus now if you're going to extend, because you could just guarantee money further out. And because like TJ Watt, I don't think he cares about having it all right now or not, if it's guaranteed. I was just looking at it of just what the dead money would be, and if they just took his salary that he was supposed to get this year and turned it all into a signing bonus and then give him more years, however you want to do that. That would save like another 10 million probably.
Yeah.
And that's just throwing that out there off the top of my head.
They're going to be in position to be big time players in free agency. Bryan, what else? Any other big news for you this offseason? What you would consider that?
Yeah. An extension. I don't know who, but an extension would be a big move. If you wrapped somebody up that you had, extending George Pickens would be a very big move. Gosh. And whether you want them to do that or not, that would be, my gosh, that would be a ginormous move. I would think as far as things go there. If that came across the wire, everybody, isn't a big move something that makes us go, whoa. And that would definitely make us go, whoa there. So I think that would be a big move. The other big move that I would think would be, we heard a lot this week about, who was it that Daniel Jeremiah did the mock draft, and a guy that you don't expect dropping down to the Steelers, like an Ashton Genty, and a lot of people balk at running backs number 1. That would be a big move. Here's another one. I saw some mock drafts where Tyler Warren fell down to like 20 or 21. I mean, if he fell down to the Steelers, he's a tight end, but he's a dynamic pass catcher. We saw what Brock Bowers did last year. If a guy like that fell down and he was like the best offensive player available at that point, and they went and got him kind of like the Raiders did, who had Michael Mayer, who's a pretty good tight end. Yeah. And then they're like, heck, we cannot pass up on Brock Bowers. So if the Steelers did something like that with a Tyler Warren, that would make a lot of people go, whoa, as well. But maybe if you're not drafting for explicit need, but drafting the best player, and you draft a blockbuster guy, whether you need him or not, that's a huge move.
The last thing I'm going to say, and then I'll let everyone else have their final thoughts before we take a break, is I think that a big move for the Steelers would be if they go out and get a proven veteran at a position that you're just not expecting them to target. It would be them signing an offensive tackle, a free agent offensive tackle, and it's a lot of money. And you're like, whoa, really? And what does that say about their current tackles? That would be the talking point following the signing. But I think even if you're able to go guard, and I'm not talking about signing coming off of a ruptured Achilles tendon James Daniels, I'm talking about getting the best free agent on the market. They are going to have those type of funds available to get those players. I think that would be a big move as well. And so I think the fans at this point, because, like I said, it felt like at times, as Mike Tomlin often does, he was waxing our car a little bit, and we're going to change, guys. Don't worry. This offseason, we are going to change. And so fans are like, thank you, finally. And it hasn't happened. So I think that I thought it was appropriate to okay, well, what would a big change look like? What would a big move look like this offseason? Dave, any other ones that you want to bring up?
I'm just saying, if they're going to if their big moves are coming via free agency, they couldn't have happened yet. That's just that simple. So yeah, I get it. I mean, it's so funny because leading up to free agency, you always get some names thrown around and things out there. Like I remember last year, someone said Patrick Queen. I'm like, Patrick Queen's not going to leave the Ravens and go to the Steelers. They're not going to pay him, are they? And they did, and the biggest contract they've ever given. But that contract compared to what the Steelers have for free agent, for their cap space now for free agency, would be like, yeah, you could do a couple of them. Right. They really could because of their space. To me, it's funny because Jeff actually said something on one of your shows this week. Who knows which one, Jeff? One of Jeff's 27 shows. I think it was Monday on Let's Ride, if I really remember, about draft a corner and sign a defensive lineman. I think you are 100% backwards on that one because all the Steelers have at corner are guys that they've drafted.
True.
They actually need a veteran there. That's where I would, and like they're Steelers' most expensive defense. They're like 30th in spending at cornerback. So I wouldn't be surprised if they spend some money there. And there's actually a decent free agent class there. I think that would be a big move. And what are people going to complain about? Oh, most expensive defense. Well, yeah, that's honestly, if there's one place on defense you will need to spend the money, that's it. Now, they've already spent a lot on defensive line. So if they add more on the defensive line, to me, it's definitely got to be at the expense of releasing Alario Gajobi. But man, this is a deep defensive line draft. So if you want to build defensive line for the future, to me, that's the place I would do it this year. So to me, a big move. We talk about big moves. Some of the that you guys are talking almost seems like shocking moves. Something that would shock you, like you said, the tackle or the guard or something like that. I don't know if much of anything would shock me unless they go out and sign a huge outside linebacker or something like that. But to me, a big move would be not spending your money. That would be like an awful big move. Yeah. That's like the opposite, a big move is no move. That would be the biggest move because you're primed right now to go out and really do something big. I think what would be more shocking and bigger would be to do nothing. So don't do that, Steelers. Go out there, build this team for next year.
That's true. Bryan, anything else?
Yeah. This is going to be this would be a big move that doesn't seem like a big move. But if you read my market watch on SteelCurtainNetwork.com today for running backs. There's some guys out there that the Steelers could bring in, and I expect them to bring in some kind of free agent running back. I really do. And they could bring in some guys cheap. However, those cheap guys that they can bring in have the dreaded injury that they're trying to get back from. But now we saw last year, J.K. Dobbins had a pretty nice year. He played 14 games, and he's still not that expensive. Bringing a guy like that in. Now, here's the one that's going to make everybody just want to find my address and punch me. I could really see them making a move and bringing in Nick Chubb. And
I don't think they're going to look for your address. I think that makes sense.
Yeah, but there's a lot of people that would go crazy with that because he's washed up and he's hurt and he's never been the same. But what I've been reading in the reports on this guy, you could get him for $3 million a year. And you can also, they're also saying that the kind of injury he had takes about 2 years to go ahead and heal. If he becomes even 75, 80% of what he was, you've got a good platoon with Jaylen Warren, because I don't expect them to bell cow Jaylen Warren. No. This reminds me, a Nick Chubb signing would be just like 20 years ago when they signed Deuce Staley. Mm-hmm. And until Deuce got hurt, Deuce was leading the league in rushing in 2004 for that team until he got hurt. He was a very good signing, but he had the same thing. He was coming back from a devastating injury, came in cheap. So, I actually think that would not seem like a big move, but I think it would be.
Yeah, I talk a lot about running backs on tomorrow's Let's Ride podcast. And one of the things that when I talk with Jeremy Betts in the All Bets Are Off segment about this, I'm okay if they go like a Nick Chubb route. If he's deemed healthy, before they sign him and he's cheap, then I'm fine with it. Because if you're going to draft, everyone's like, they're going to draft a running back at some point. Okay, so if you tender Jaylen Warren to bring him back, you free agent like signing of Nick Chubb, and then you draft a running back, you've got to be able to utilize everyone. If you're going to spend big money on a free agent, I don't know if you draft one anytime before day 3. That just doesn't make sense. There's not enough carries unless it's just a basic insurance policy. But I don't know. It's interesting. The running back position is a sneaky big need for the Steelers. Dave, go ahead.
Yeah, because I wanted to say about when Bryan was on, and I'm sorry I jumped in about the Nick Chubb thing. No, those reports got floated out there yesterday or today or sometime around there that the Steelers could be interested in. And honestly, it would make sense. But with a lot of these things, I would say it all depends on the contract. You're not going to do a massive overpay for someone coming off an injury like that. You don't want another Kirk Cousins in Atlanta thing, coming off an injury, massive overpay. Now they're moving on. But to me, when it comes to running back, I think you want 3. Bottom line is, I say this: keep one, sign one, draft one. Yeah, that's your 3 running backs for this year. Keep one, sign one, draft one. And the one that keep, I believe, is going to be Jaylen Warren. Now, remember, with Jaylen Warren, they do that. If they offer him the tender, they can still sign him. But if he signs that, that's just one more year. So if you do draft one and then you really like him, guess what? Then you know your options. So that's why I'm with you, Jeff. I wouldn't go round 1 or even round 2. Unless there's someone really there round 2 or round 1 that you really didn't expect to be there, I wouldn't plan on it. But I would be targeting guys that would be there round 3 or 4 to then see if you really like one of those. And then if someone else is there that you didn't expect, then that's a whole different story.
Yeah. Bryan.
All right. So one last thing. Dave said draft one, sign one, and draft one, sign one, and keep one.
Yeah.
Well, if they don't keep Jaylen Warren, I think that's a big move. But I want to add one more, and it's drop one, and it's Cordero Patterson.
Yeah, I think he's gone.
Yeah, but add that to your list. You got to drop Cordero Patterson because you're not going to get anything out of him, especially if you bring in a veteran running back that he's just occupying space. I would rather see, a Jonathan Ward get more of a chance than Cordero Patterson because we saw absolutely nothing out of the guy last year. The only thing we saw out of Cordero was maybe a half of really good football and I will say this. I thought we saw a great locker room presence out of him, but not enough on the field.
See, because you got to remember, sometimes you make a move after you sign somebody. For example, I remember I was at an aquarium where I think it was at Curie Beach a couple years ago, when it was the beginning of the NFL league year, and I'm there and I'm like, what's going on? There's all these moves going on, and I'm trying to do stuff while helping Jeff out while in the aquarium. And it was the Steelers signed another linebacker and dropped Miles Jack. So that they held on to him until they signed someone else, and then they dropped him. I could very well see the same thing with Cordell Patterson. Not that they would necessarily let him go now, but they would let him go after they had somebody else on the contract.
That's good. Okay. This has been a good segment. Good first half of the show. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we have a super chat to get to. I want to have some fun. We'll do some trivia. We'll be right back. All right, Steeler fans, welcome back. Thank you for being patient. And if you were watching live on any platform, clearly we didn't go anywhere. But for those on the audio side, you heard a few words from our sponsors. Let's get to the super chat. SteelDog88 gives us $5. Says, if the Steelers do sign Justin Fields, who would you think they should pair as his backup, draft or veteran? This is a great question. If Justin Fields is the quarterback, who do they pair? Now, this is also gleaning off of what Art Rooney II said to everyone that had a microphone in the Pittsburgh area, that they want their backup to have a similar skill set. So let's keep that in the back of your mind. Is there anyone that comes to mind, Dave, if Justin Fields is the guy?
If Justin Fields is the guy, to me, I could see the Steelers playing it out where they would even sign Kyle Allen to be the quote-unquote potential backup, but know that they could still add somebody else along the way and wait until after the draft. It could very well be that the Steelers have a quarterback that they think could be a decent backup and maybe hit lightning in a bottle in like the third or fourth round. Again, like I was talking running backs. You don't want to fill up everything and then not have any room for something like that. If it's a potential, I know Jeremy Betts likes the Ohio State quarterback. Hey, you would have 2 Ohio State quarterbacks if you signed.
Howard,
which is not good when you look at the history of Ohio State quarterbacks in the NFL. But I don't know that I'd go anything specific there. Honestly, it would really depend on what they end up signing Fields for, if they want to then invest much more. Because I think if they sign Fields, it's with the understanding that he's got the pole position.
Yeah. All right, Brian, what do you think?
All right, I was chomping at the bit, waiting for Dave to stop, just hoping he would not take mine, and he did not take it. And as soon as you said it, I was like, "Go to me first, Jeff." Jameis Winston, the star of Super Bowl week. The guy has character. He's actually, we have found out that he was a very good presence in Cleveland, and I would bring in Jameis as a backup and not a starter.
But is he of similar skill set, though? That feels like a Wilson/Field situation again. Not so much the pole position part, but the fact that they do not have the similar skill set.
He could run.
Well,
he definitely had, and he's not as old as Wilson.
No.
Well, here's my thing. Jameis Winston, the guy seems like a character. He seems like he would be a whole lot of fun.
He is
the antithesis of what Mike Tomlin wants from a quarterback. And that is someone who will take care of the football and not make the big mistake. Jameis Winston is like, let me make big mistake over and over and over again. And eventually I'll have one of those games where I play crazy great. And I'll have another one where I'm going to throw 5 interceptions against the Broncos or something like that. Something crazy like that. I would steer. I don't see the Steelers doing that. I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to just the whole idea because I think it would be fun, but he just doesn't seem to fit something like that. I would see more like, if you know that Fields would be the guy, like, what is it? Someone said a Tyrod Taylor. I don't know if he's available. Jacoby Brissett, is he available? Where's your Case Keenum at, Brian? Isn't he your guy?
No,
I thought that's up.
I think if
happening.
The Steelers are, if they're adamant about having a similar skill set, then I'm going to give you a couple players. The Steelers have to trade for these players,
okay,
but it might be just some late round compensation. if it would be someone like Joe Milton in New England, who second-year player, he's behind an entrenched franchise guy. Okay, what will it take? And who knows if Mike Vrabel even likes him as a quarterback. But in terms of skill set, it's a very similar skill set of Justin Fields. Now, before people go berserk in the live chat and say he sucks, whatever, I'm not expecting him to be the next franchise quarterback. I'm just saying as a backup, he would have a similar skill set. Another one would be, and his name is escaping my brain, but it was Andrew Wilbar's love, his crush. He's in Green Bay now.
Malik Willis.
Malik Willis, there it is. Because whether you like him or not, Malik Willis would have a similar skill set of Justin Fields. I think those are kind of the players that you would maybe see. And then I think a Jameis Winston, a Kyle Allen type would be they have no one after the draft. The Steelers need a quarterback 3 to finish out the room. Let's go and get a veteran. Those would be the guys that I would call then. But in terms of the QB2, those are the 2 names that I have in the back of my head, like with Milton and then Malik Willis. Go ahead, Bryan.
What do you think about a Snoop Huntley?
Where's he? He was in Miami last year and he played awful. But then again, that's Tua's system. I don't know how well that would cause it. But yeah, I mean, someone just said, how about Tyler Huntley? I don't know.
Yeah, that's the same guy, right?
But he would be a similar, if you're building an offense like that, which you would hope that you would do if you do have Fields.
Yeah, maybe it's a third more. I mean, maybe have him in as a third. But, there's guys like that you could look at.
And I do want to bring this up, honestly, just because, Biggie Bronco's in the live chat. He's like, I don't have the money for the super chat. I'm like, okay. But he wanted to bring up the notion of, because you asked this last week, Jeff, about when there was the whole rumor of the Trevor Lawrence rumor of, do they really want to stay with him? He brought up the Will Levis because of the Titans drafting first overall. I'll tell you this about Will Levis. I thought Mason Rudolph was better.
Yeah,
and the Steelers had Mason Rudolph.
He was.
So I don't get how Will Levis would then be their answer for the Steelers.
Yeah.
Maybe Mason Rudolph.
Yeah.
Good God.
Yeah.
How about Duck Hodges? He just got engaged. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Okay. So that was a good question. Thank you. That's a good talking point. And Daniel Jones is a name that is now being injected into a lot of Steelers conversations. And believe it or not, I think Daniel Jones, if he were just no one wanted him and he was like league minimum, that would be another guy that would be a very similar skill set. He's more athletic than you think and can run the football. So if you wanted to have that element,
he'd have to be cheap.
Yeah.
I don't. That's the thing. You want to talk about excitement over the Steelers signing a quarterback to, if it's not going to be one of the guys here. I mean, I don't know how excited I'd be about any quarterback that they sign at this time, because I just don't think there's one out there that's going to make that large of a jump over what they were getting last year. To me, it's all about price. I didn't even want Justin Fields last year until I saw how cheap they got him.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I wrote that article for SteelCurtainNetwork.com today. It comes down to 2 things: upside and price. That's it. That's what it comes down to. None of these quarterbacks we're talking about are going to take the Steelers to like new heights that like no one's ever reached before since Ben Roethlisberger. So what you have to do is, okay, who's the best quarterback that's going to cost us the least amount of money so we can build the rest of the freaking roster so that we find our quarterback when we're one quarterback away.
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to. I have for me, it's like, do I want Fields? Do I want Wilson? Who's cheaper? That's what it comes down to me. So that's just a fan's perspective. But okay, let's move on from the quarterback talk. It's gotten a lot of traction on the podcast feed all week. Not everything has been groovy in Steeler Nation, especially in our area. Bryan, I wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about a Super Bowl winning player who recently passed away. In a very interesting story. I met the man. I know both of us have met the man. I got to hold his Super Bowl ring after my daughter's volleyball match at the YMCA in town a couple years ago. Bryan, go ahead and tell the story.
So Mike Collier came to the team as a rookie in 1975, and he was a special teamer.
I will say this: as good as that 74 draft was, 75, Collier was probably the best pick they had when you look at how the rest of that draft was. Yeah.
And I believe he came from Coppin State, I'm
Morgan State.
Morgan State. Okay. Excuse me. Morgan State.
Oh, you're muted, Bryan.
Don't know what happened.
There he is.
We got it.
so he was a guy that the Steelers brought in, and he made a big play in the Super Bowl as a special teamer. I on the cover of the Post-Gazette after they won their second Super Bowl, he was a guy that they went ahead and he was on that cover in the celebration in the end zone. And I've got to say, he was a fellow that just a very humble, very nice man. He would do he was a manager at a supermarket in the town that we live in. And every Super Bowl weekend, he would sit there and he would sign autographs for free. You could throw in money for a charity that he had his own charity that you could throw in, but you didn't have to. And he would let you wear his rings, like Jeff said. Just a really good guy. And I had a chance to get to know him through another Steeler fan here, and I would talk to him from time to time. I was on the radio with him once or twice for a local sports radio station. So I got to know him. But I have a story that when I was in 2008, right before the presidential election, and it was that Monday Night Washington game, there was a signing in Chantilly, Virginia, and I had a chance to meet Frenchie Fuqua. And I was talking to Frenchie, and not only was I talking to him, he needed a ride to the airport. So they asked me to take Frenchie to the airport. And so we were talking, and I talking about where I was from, and I said, "You know who's from there? Mike Collier's from there." He said, "Man, Mike and I were buddies. I haven't talked to him in over 30 years." And one thing that I'm very proud of is that I got a chance to reunite them after 30 years, and they started doing autograph signings together. Mike was just a very wonderful guy. He was proud of being a Steeler, and he wore that with pride. I think he played with the team for 2 years and went on with his life's work. Passed away the other day. I got a call yesterday, and then I saw more about it today on the wire. Passed away at the age of 71 years old. Mm-hmm. And his funeral services are coming up this weekend. There's a lot of Steelers that you're going to remember from those Super Bowl years. You might not remember a Mike Collier, number 44, but he was instrumental in that season as a special teamer and just a fine man. And the person that called me yesterday to tell me about it was all broken up about it. And I look back and I think, we lost another great one. And you don't have to be an all-pro to be a great one. You have to be someone that is humble and says, "Yes, I played the game," but treats you like a human being and is a superstar at heart. And that's what Mike Collier was. So may he rest in peace.
Yes. Dave, anything to add?
Yeah. I think in his second year in Pittsburgh, he was injured for most of the year. And then he ended up with Buffalo. I don't know if he ever appeared in any games or whatnot. But I met him multiple times. And I remember the one time he had my eldest son wear his Super Bowl ring. He actually has family in my neighborhood. I'm pretty sure it was his sister-in-law is who lives in my neighborhood. So occasionally I would see them like at trick-or-treating. He was there. They're like, "Oh, you're dressed in Steelers stuff. Come in here." I'm like, "Oh yeah, Mr. Collier, I've talked to you before," and everything. But I just remember when he had my son try on, wear his Super Bowl ring. I think he was 6 or 7 at the time. I said to him, "All right, this is your one shot. Next time you got to earn it when you put one of those on." Unlike Kenny Pickett. No, sorry.
Yeah. Oh, nice. I only met him that one time. I had seen him and knew his story. My father-in-law knew him, and I'll say this: life is full of peaks and valleys, and sometimes you're defined not by what happens on the peaks, but how you get out of the valleys. And Mike Collier had plenty of those in his life, and the fact that he did get out of those valleys and had a sustained life and was a good family man and gave a lot back, like Bryan said, with his charity. Rest in peace for sure. The other person I want to talk about, and it sucks that it was the day before my birthday. I talked about this in my heart to heart on the Let's Ride podcast. I feel like a piece of my childhood died yesterday when Mike Lang passed away. And if you're not a Penguins fan, that's okay. This is a Steelers podcast.
You suck. No, sorry.
But I've said this my whole life, or since I left Wheeling, was they'll say, "You a Steelers fan?" I'm like, "No, I'm a Pittsburgh fan because I like the Pirates, Penguins, and the Steelers." And Mike Lang was literally like the soundtrack to my childhood. I loved the Penguins so much in the early 90s as a young kid. Those teams were freaking phenomenal. Like Mario Lemieux, Yarmer Yager, Ron Francis, Joey Mullen. I could read off the entire freaking team if you want. And then you had this soundtrack of Mike Lang that was always there. And it wasn't just the call. Like it wasn't just it wasn't just the calling of the game, which he did magnificently. He painted the picture of a hockey game like no one else could. But it was the extra stuff he added. You know, it's the same with Myron Cope. Myron Cope didn't just say, "Oh my gosh, look at that tackle by Joey Porter." No, he said, "Joey Porter knocked that guy's teeth into the 5th row. Did you see that?" Like it made it special. It made it colorful. And so when he says, "Scratch my back with a hacksaw," or one of my favorites, that goalie doesn't know whether to cry or wind his watch. I mean, they're handing out checks like it's the first of the month. They're buzzing like bees around a hive. Like Mike Lang made it so much fun. And to this day, if we're in public and someone drops something and it breaks, my dad started this when we were kids. One of us will say, "Hey," shoots and scores.
Yep.
So Mike Lang, I mean, when he passed away, was just, oh my gosh, like,
Yeah.
He hasn't called a game since like 2019, but it was just such a gut punch. And I've seen a lot of really cool clips from really cool moments that he got to call, and they have never replaced him, by the way. Like they've replaced him, but they've never replaced him. No one's come close, and no one will ever come close to touching Mike Lang in terms of that prowess. So rest in peace, Mike Lang. Just, man.
Yeah.
That was a tough
I'll tell you something though, Jeff. I thought that he did guest for one game within the last. Huh?
Oh,
no.
Okay.
I mean,
he also covered Pirate games.
Oh yeah, he did. But
really,
90s,
yeah, I saw some calls of him doing some Pirate stuff.
Yeah,
but I'm just saying, I think they had him on special to make a call. This had to be within the last 3 or 4 years, because
Maybe.
I specifically tuned in to listen to the radio because I wanted to hear him one more time.
You're probably right. You're probably
yeah.
right.
So he hasn't. I think when he regularly stopped, I think was 2019.
Yeah.
You could even take a crappy Jean-Claude Van Damme movie and make me want to watch it just because you get to hear Mike Lang.
Yeah, that's true. Sudden Death, really bad movie. Bryan, anything you want to say?
Yeah, he was just an original. And that's, we talked about Bob Uecker passing away.
Yeah.
And now Mike Lang did not have the national following that Bob Uecker did. But in Pittsburgh, Mike Lang was Mount Rushmore of announcers. Yeah. And he always will be. I loved listening to the guy call a game every single time. It was just... I grew up with guys like Fratteri too, Lanny Fratteri. Mm-hmm. And, when you grow up with those guys, they just felt like home, and you listen to them and you feel like every game's going to be all right when you're listening to it on the radio. And sometimes you had to listen to those games on the radio, and he just painted that picture and you felt like you were watching it on TV. So they did a top 10 from a few years back on the Sports Center. I think you posted it, Jeff. Yeah. And there was a couple missing from there. I think there's
so many missing.
Move over, Grandma. The bingo game's about to begin. Is that the big one?
Get in the fast lane, Grandma.
There we go.
Fast lane, Grandma.
But my favorite one, and I'm just going to wrap this up with this, and I'm going to alter it a little bit. Buy St. Peter a drink and get Mike Lang one too.
Yes. I was going to ask what your guys' favorite call was, because there's so many.
It's buy Sam a drink.
Buy Sam a drink and get his dog one too. Or he beat him like a rented mule.
I just loved Elvis had just left the building simply because I knew the Penguins also.
Oh, that's the best.
That's the one.
So I spent the evening and then the majority of this morning as I was tending to things here at the house, and I was like thinking about my childhood. I'm 42 years old now. I still remember so much of it like it was yesterday. And I was like, okay, Lanny Fratteri, still alive, not calling games anymore. And then I think about the Steelers, Myron Cope, gone. Tunch Ilkin, gone. Bill Hillgrove, retired. And then I think about now the Penguins of Mike Lang gone. It's like, man, like I said, it feels like a part of my childhood died. And it's just, man, it sucks. But we'll always have those. His calls will always live on. And as long as they're have replay and video like we have now, just absolutely. So,
I feel like we still have Myron too, in a way.
yeah.
And I want to throw this in. Just I feel like the Pirates have a guy that is becoming one of those legends in Greg Brown.
Greg Brown is great. Yes.
And I just absolutely I feel like he's one too. But man, Mike Lang is going to be missed.
I could do a whole show on just Mike Lang.
Yeah.
We're not going to do that. So Dave, do you have trivia?
I do. I got two things that are completely unrelated. One of them is just because I'm going to see if I can dig up more of these during the offseason. And this one should not be hard. But I just like to. Sorry, I got to serve some up every once in a while to give Jeff a chance. But Jalen Warren looks like he's going to be getting reserve. What am I saying? Not reserve. Restricted free agent tender. That's what the reports are coming out. But he came in, made the team as an undrafted free agent. But yet he wasn't the most heralded running back undrafted free agent of that class. Do you remember the name and school of the other running back?
Oh, it was the Duke guy, wasn't it? Did he go to Duke?
Yep.
And he got the largest contract at that time.
Yep.
Yeah.
He got the big signing bonus. So that's why
I can't remember his name to save my life.
You got it,
I
Bryan?
remember he played at Duke.
What position did he play again?
This was running back. This was he was the other running back that was an undrafted free agent the same year as Jalen Warren.
And the Steelers signed him. Yeah, what was his name? Because we were all excited about this guy.
I'm happy that Jeff got the school though.
Started with an M, I think.
Yep.
Like M-A, Mate, something.
Yep. You're right. Mateo.
So it was Mateo.
Yep.
Durant.
Yep, they both said it at the same time. Mateo Durant. That is correct. That was the other. So that's your random somebody that was with the Steelers in a preseason and not beyond question of the night. So, all right, we know that Steelers fans, we are frustrated with the no playoff wins since 2016. When they were in the AFC Championship game. They've lost 6 straight playoff games. It's really frustrating. It's been 8 seasons. 8 seasons isn't the worst. Actually, Washington, they broke their streak. Do you guys remember how many seasons it had been since they had won a playoff game when they won it? If that was brought up?
Yeah. Washington, yeah, they last won in the 2005 season. Mm-hmm. And they beat Tampa Bay again. So, that was Sean Taylor was on the team.
You're right. 19
and that was
years.
The year the Steelers won the Super Bowl.
Yeah. There's actually 2 that they didn't even have the longest streak. There are actually 2 teams that have a longer winless streak in the postseason than what Washington had. So they're both in the 20s. Do you know either of those teams or how long the streaks are?
Oh, I absolutely know one of them.
Good, Bryan.
And it was Bo Jackson broke his hip with Cincinnati. I mean, he wasn't with Cincinnati, but he was with the Raiders and broke his hip in that game in 1990 season. And they did not win again.
We're talking active, Bryan. I mean, my goodness,
streak.
Yeah, because the Steelers have like 50 some years where they didn't win a playoff game.
Oh, okay.
From 33-72. So we're talking active. But I'll tell you this. You're not wrong.
So the Raiders?
The Raiders
are one of the when's the last playoff game the Raiders won?
The AFC Championship game.
I'd say the Tuck rule game.
What?
No, they didn't win that one, but it was the divisional round before that.
They beat the Titans in the AFC Championship game.
They went to the Super Bowl in the 2002 season, so they won the AFC Championship game. They have not won a playoff game since. It's only been 3, but they have not won since. But there is a team that has gone even longer since they have won a playoff game. Active.
Well, it's not the Jets.
No.
The Jets are third. It's been 14 years for them because they haven't even made the playoffs in 14 years.
Yeah.
I thought you guys might know this one.
I just wasn't ready.
Afton is saying the Cardinals.
The Cardinals is a good one. That's only been 9 years because they did win in 2015. They won in the divisional round.
Yeah, I would
That's a
go
good
ahead and
guess,
say I saw it come across from Mark, and I'm going to mimic Mark Tobin and say Miami.
The Miami Dolphins have not won a playoff game since the 2000 AFC wildcard round.
Holy crap.
That's 24 seasons they've gone.
Was that
without
Chad
winning a playoff.
Pennington?
I do not know who was quarterbacking.
No,
I just know
Chad
that
wasn't.
It's 6 games they haven't. They've lost, one of which was in Pittsburgh. But yeah.
Chad wasn't even drafted yet.
Oh my
he was
gosh.
drafted a couple months later to the Jets. They beat the Indianapolis Colts in that game. I remember that.
My
they
buddy
beat the
Danny would know.
Colts,
He's a huge Fins
and
fan.
I think it was Heward. Could have been the quarterback.
Okay.
Damon. I think Damon Heward.
No, I have to look that up.
Yeah, that's not worth
Yeah,
it.
24. They've gone 24 years without winning a playoff game.
Very good. Very good. Mateo Durant got something right. There you go.
But so now I know why Hootie the Blowfish said the Dolphins made them cry.
It's true. All right, Bryan, let's do some final thoughts.
All right. So, I've mentioned this week a lot, and I want to harken back to my bad language show. If you did not get a chance to listen to it, there's so much NFL matchmaking going on, and with the Steelers, that's what it is. So everybody gets up in arms when they hear Daniel Jones, when they hear Aaron Rodgers, when they hear Trevor Lawrence, which was just even a rumor. But what goes on in these is you really need to pay attention to the ones from 412 or 724 or just the surrounding areas that follow the team 24/7, 365, because it's very easy to go ahead and just look and say, wow, they need this. You could drive by my house and you're like, okay, they need a new driveway. And so a new driveway, a driveway guy, you meet a driveway guy that comes to town, or he's at a local show, and you say, hey, you should go see the Davises because they've got a terrible driveway. You're matchmaking, and that's exactly what NFL media is doing it. The national media does that all the time. So just because somebody prints on the best fit for a Nick Chubb is the Steelers or is Aaron Rodgers or what have you, that's just the opinion right now. That's nothing that you read right now is gospel. We found it last week that a lot of it is sometimes throwing out something, turning it into a rumor, and making it seem like it's gospel and going to happen, and people go crazy. But there's one thing that drives me absolutely nuts, and I read it just today, and I thought it was funny. Would you stop cheering for the Steelers if they signed Daniel Jones? Would you stop watching? At the time, 52% said I would stop watching the Steelers. I call bull. You're not going to stop watching the Steelers. If you are participating in a poll right now, or like Jeff said on his Let's Ride show the other day, if you're listening right now, you're a diehard fan. So you're not going away. So I'm calling bull on you for that, but I get it. And I get it. You don't want these guys, but everybody's trying to go ahead and make a name for themselves right now. And they're throwing out possibilities that they just think would work because it just makes sense that they would.
Fair enough. Dave, final thoughts?
All right. Final thoughts. First of all, one more time, wish one Jefferson Hartman a happy birthday, even though your name isn't really Jefferson. But just have to do that. And in honor of Jeff, this just kind of got me thinking about some the way we like to pick on Jeff about certain things. Like, I'm not going to play it again. His reaction to Kenny Pickett getting drafted.
You can play it. I stand by it. I said it.
It was actually, it was prophetic. It was perfect.
But while Kenny Pickett was here, guess what he had? He had our support. When he's wearing that black and gold uniform and he's the guy that feels going out there, he has our support. And like right now, I know a lot of people want to be really down on the Steelers coaches. I'm not focusing on things that aren't changing for 2025. Not that I don't think that they shouldn't have changed. Not that if I got to have my choice, I'd keep it how it was. That's not the case. But I'm not going to dwell on something that isn't going to be that isn't happening for the Steelers, and want to focus on the stuff that they could be happening. And I know right now we talk about quarterbacks. Oh, I really don't want this person. I really don't want that person. I really don't. But you want to know what? Kind of to go along with what Bryan's saying, if they're the person that's wearing that black uniform with the italicized numbers, although I'd rather see the block ones, that's still fine. And they're the ones that's going to be out there come week 1 in September. You know what? They're going to have my support. Even if they're going to get frustrated with me, I'm going to want to see them do well because I want to see the Pittsburgh Steelers do well. So some of these things that I'm choosing not to get too involved with in the discussion, or things that aren't worth discussing because they're not going to happen because it's already moved on. So the thing is, I'm excited about what the Steelers have to offer, even though it hasn't happened. You might not have faith in the team or whatnot, but I want to see that big move, bringing it back to the topic. Want to see that big move this offseason. And even if it's something that I don't agree with, you know what? I'm still going to cheer them on.
Absolutely. Dave, you can cue that audio. I want to say thank you to you guys. Thank you.
I don't have it on this one.
Oh, you don't have it on this one.
Well,
okay.
no, wait. I mean,
you can switch it. Who cares? I want to thank everyone for wishing me a happy birthday. Those that did, everyone on staff. I know that Bryan and Dave, they always do a good job of telling people when people's birthdays are. I don't expect anything, but you guys are good friends, and I appreciate everyone, all the listeners out there for sure. Thank you for the birthday wishes. Dave, you got it?
It was processing.
Oh my gosh! Don't take Kenny Pickett. Don't take Kenny Pickett. You shut the front door. Gosh. That was how I felt.
Never gets old. That never gets old.
That was how I felt when they drafted Pickett, but I did root for him when he was with the Steelers. So, all right, Dave, why don't you send us out?
Hey.
We'll see you next week on another Steelers preview.
Steel Curtain Network. Get it.
Everybody else gets a little tight.